What defines a man? The strength he projects to the world, or the doubts that consume him in silence? We build idols based on images of perfection, sculpted bodies, and unwavering smiles. But what if the very image that elevates him is also his cage? Welcome to the truth, dark psychology. Today, we won't talk about mythological gods, but about the man who became one. A global icon whose identity seems forged as much by his talent as by the crushing weight of a physical ideal. If you're interested in deciphering the psychological pressures behind fame, subscribe and leave a like, because we are about to unravel the armor of one of the most iconic men of our time. Chris Hemsworth's image is, first and foremost, a work of physical engineering. The body that established him as Thor is not just a result of discipline, but the cornerstone of an empire. Psychologically, he became the personification of the modern masculine ideal: strength, virility, and an almost superhuman perfection. This image has been brilliantly capitalized upon, turning his physique into a trademark, a seal of quality for action films, and a box office draw. He doesn't just sell a movie. He sells the aspiration to be like him, a powerful fantasy that attracts millions and which the industry has monetized with surgical precision, solidifying an archetype that is both his greatest asset and his greatest limitation. This image construction, however, operates as a double-edged sword. From a dark psychology perspective, when your main value proposition is your body, your identity becomes dangerously tied to it. Any fluctuation, aging, or deviation from this standard can be perceived, both internally and externally, as a character flaw or a decline in value. He's not just an actor. He is the body. This fusion creates constant psychological pressure to maintain an unrealistic standard, not just for health, but for professional relevance. The fear of losing his physique becomes conflated with the fear of losing his career, a subtle trap that binds the individual to his own image. This burden of aesthetic perfection is a well-documented phenomenon. The individual ceases to be seen as a whole person and becomes an object of admiration, an ideal to be consumed. Hemsworth, in several interviews, has hinted at the weight of this expectation, the grueling routine, and the brutal diet. What the public sees as inspiration is, behind the scenes, a daily sacrifice that borders on obsession. This cycle of self-imposition to meet external expectations is a form of psychological imprisonment, where the freedom to be normal or flawed is progressively annihilated in the name of maintaining the idol. The manipulation, in this case, is not external but a self-manipulation imposed by the rules of the Hollywood game. To stay at the top, he must perpetuate the image that the public and the studios have bought into. This forces him to shape his behavior, his choices, and even his well-being around this avatar. The smile on the red carpet and the dedication in the gym hide an internal battle against physical and mental exhaustion. The charismatic and powerful public persona becomes a mask that both protects and suffocates the real identity, which longs for a less conditioned existence. Therefore, the psychological lesson we draw from Hemsworth's rise is the dangerous seduction of image specialization. By becoming the best at one thing, in this case, the personification of the physically perfect action hero, he risked overshadowing all other facets of his identity. The body that opened all doors may have paradoxically closed the door to a deeper exploration of himself as an actor and as an individual, creating a gilded cage of muscles and expectations from which it is almost impossible to escape. Playing a character as iconic as Thor for over a decade has a profound psychological cost. This phenomenon is known as identity fusion, where the lines between the actor and the character become blurred. For Hemsworth, Thor was not just a role, but the vehicle that catapulted him to global stardom. However, this symbiosis casts an overwhelming shadow. He himself has admitted to sometimes feeling like a parody of himself, especially in the character's more comedic phases, revealing a discomfort with the image that became larger than him. the persona of the god of thunder with his strength and charisma constantly threatens to swallow the man behind the cape. The struggle to dissociate from such a dominant role is a battle for one's artistic soul. Hemsworth confessed that, within the pantheon of the Avengers, he often felt like the security guard for the team, valued more for his muscles than for his dramatic depth. This perception reveals an insecurity planted by the very industry that celebrates him. He is the archetype of the hero, yet he longs to be seen as a versatile actor. Every new role outside of Marvel is an attempt to break the mold, to prove to the world and to himself that his identity is more complex than the hammer and the biceps, a relentless search for validation beyond his most famous persona. From a dark psychology standpoint, the dominant persona acts as a mechanism of social control. The public and the industry develop a fixed expectation, and any deviation from this image can be met with resistance or indifference. This limits the actor's creative freedom, forcing him into a cycle of repetition or an arduous struggle to be taken seriously in other genres. The genius of his construction as a hero becomes his curse, a label that, while profitable, can generate a feeling of stagnation and frustration, the sense of being a product with only one flavor. This internal battle between the persona the public loves and the identity he wishes to explore creates constant tension. The charisma and confidence displayed on screen hide the anxiety of being replaceable, the fear that without the Thor suit, his value in Hollywood would drastically diminish. He has expressed the fear of not getting work anymore, a surprising confession for one of the biggest stars on the planet. This fear is not irrational. It is a symptom of a fragmented identity, where one part of himself has been so amplified that the others risk atrophy. The lesson here is about the danger of allowing a single facet to define our totality. Hemsworth's resounding success as Thor has taught him and us that public acclaim can be a form of imprisonment. His fight to diversify his career and be seen beyond the hero is a powerful reminder that true fulfillment lies not in matching an image, however glorious, but in having the freedom to be multifaceted, complex, and above all, authentic, even if it means disappointing the expectations of others. The creation of the Fitness App Center is a masterstroke in terms of personal branding, but also a fascinating case study in the psychology of influence. By selling access to his team of trainers and nutritionists, Hemsworth isn't just selling a workout program. He's selling the promise of his own power, the illusion that anyone can achieve his godlike physique. This plays on one of the deepest human insecurities, dissatisfaction with one's own body. The platform is positioned as a source of inspiration and wellness, but its marketing effectiveness lies in the subtle manipulation of the desire and admiration people have for him. The line between inspiration and manipulation here is extremely thin. On one hand, the app offers genuinely useful tools for a healthier life. On the other, it is anchored to the image of an ideal that is genetically and financially unattainable for most. Hemsworth's own trainer has admitted that the actor's genetics are a crucial factor, something no app can replicate. By using his image as the main draw, Center capitalizes on the hope and inevitably, the future frustration of many users who will never achieve that result, creating a cycle of continuous consumption in pursuit of an impossible goal. This strategy brilliantly exploits the authority bias. The implicit message is, if it worked for Thor, it will work for you. Hemsworth becomes the ultimate authority on body transformation, and his image lends an almost unquestionable credibility to the product. People don't just buy a workout plan. They buy a piece of his identity, an association with his success and strength. It's a powerful form of narrative control, where he transforms the pressure he endures to maintain a perfect body into a profitable product. In turn, projects that same pressure onto its consumers. The price of genius, in this business context, is the commodification of one's own identity. He has turned his personal burden, the need to maintain an extreme physical form into his greatest commercial advantage. Psychologically, this can be a way of reclaiming control over a narrative that threatened him. If your body is your prison, why not sell tickets for a visit? This maneuver demonstrates remarkable intelligence, but it also raises ethical questions about the responsibility of selling an ideal that is, in essence, an exception and not the rule. The psychological lesson Setter offers, US, is about the mechanics of influence in the digital age. Idols no longer just sell movies or music. They sell lifestyles, aspirations, and solutions to our deepest insecurities. Hemsworth managed to package the public's admiration for his physique and turn it into a multi-million-dollar business. This shows us how the charisma and authority of an image can be more powerful tools of persuasion than any logical argument. A reminder that in the attention economy, our desires are the most valuable commodity. Behind the facade of an Australian demigod resides a man who has publicly admitted to struggling with anxiety and doubt. Chris Hemsworth confessed that the beginning of his career was marked by great fear, and that, even at the height of fame, the fear that it could all disappear was a constant. This vulnerability violently contrasts with the image of unshakable confidence he projects. The trauma here comes not from a single devastating event, but from the chronic and relentless pressure of perfection. It is the trauma of living under a microscope, where every flaw is amplified and every success only raises the bar for the next challenge. This anxiety was dramatically intensified by a recent discovery: his genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's disease. This event served as a catalyst, forcing him to confront his own mortality in a very real and public way. For a man whose identity is so linked to physical vitality and control, this news represented the ultimate loss of control. It was a brutal reminder that, no matter how perfect his body looks on the outside, he is subject to the same fragilities as any human being. This confrontation with finitude seems to have initiated a profound reevaluation of his priorities. The psychology behind this transformation is fascinating. The fear of professional irrelevance was suddenly replaced by a much deeper existential fear. This led him to take a break from his career, to focus on his health in a holistic, not just aesthetic way, and to spend more time with his family. The discovery, though frightening, may have been psychologically liberating. It shattered the illusion of immortality that his superhero persona helped to sustain and reconnected him with his vulnerable humanity, perhaps offering a path to a less fragmented identity. Control, a central theme in the life of an actor who must manage his image, his body, and his career, was challenged at its most fundamental level. He could not train his way out of genetics. This powerlessness can be terrifying, but it can also be the starting point for acceptance. The need to control external perception loses its power when confronted with the need to care for internal health. The public persona becomes secondary to the survival and well-being of the real person, a forced but perhaps necessary rebalancing. What we learn from Hemsworth's journey is that the armor of perfection is incredibly fragile. The relentless pursuit of an external ideal can disconnect us from our internal truths and our own vulnerability. His health crisis shows us that true power lies not in building an invincible body, but in having the courage to face our own limitations. The identity, once fragmented by the pressure of fame, can find a path to integration through the acceptance of one's own imperfection and mortality. Narrator, if this analysis is expanding your perception, don't forget to click the like button to support our work here at The Truth. And if you're not yet part of our community, subscribe so you don't miss our next investigations into the psychology of the powerful. By the way, which other public figure would you like to see analyzed through our lens? Leave your suggestion in the comments. #Chris. Hemsworth's career outside the Marvel Universe is a map of his attempts to escape his own shadow. Roles in films like Rush, where he played the charismatic playboy James Hunt, or in Extraction, as the tormented mercenary Tyler Rake, are more than just job choices. They are calculated acts of rebellion against the archetype that defined him. Every character with flaws, moral ambiguities, or emotional depth is a blow against the gilded cage of Thor. He actively seeks projects that challenge the public's perception, and, more importantly, his self-perception as an artist. This quest for versatility is a fight against typecasting, a subtle form of industry manipulation that traps actors in repetitive roles because they are commercially safe. For Hemsworth, the risk of playing a villain in Bad Times at the El Royale, or a hacker in Black Hat, was not just financial. It was an identity risk. The audience might reject him in roles that subvert his heroic image. However, this is the only way to prove that his talent extends beyond his physique. A psychological need to feel like a complete actor and not just a movie star. The exploration of comedic roles, like the receptionist in Ghostbusters, can also be seen as an image deconstruction strategy. Humor allows him to mock his own handsome, muscular man stereotype, demonstrating self-awareness and distancing himself from the seriousness of his heroic roles. It's a way of telling the world, I know how you see me, and I can laugh about it too. This likeness is a powerful tool to humanize his image and create a more authentic connection with the audience, showing that he doesn't take himself as seriously as his Norse god persona suggests. This journey, however, is not without its risks and failures. Some of his non-Marvel films have not had the same box office success, which reinforces the pressure to return to the safe and profitable role of Thor. Every commercial failure is a reminder of the fragility of his position without the Marvel armor. This creates a psychological dilemma. Risk relevance in pursuit of artistic fulfillment, or guarantee success by perpetuating an identity that imprisons him. This tension defines much of his recent career. The lesson we take from Hemsworth's fight for versatility is about the courage to reinvent oneself. In a world that constantly labels us, the search for new identities is an act of autonomy. He teaches us that the comfort of known success can be an obstacle to personal and professional growth. His career becomes a study on the delicate balance between giving the public what it wants and satisfying an artist's intrinsic need to explore, evolve, and finally, break free from the golden chains of his own creation. Chris Hemsworth's genius is, in large part, physical. He possesses a rare ability to transform his body to meet the extreme demands of his roles, a skill that requires almost monastic dedication. However, this gift comes at a very high price, one that is not visible on the movie screen. Each cycle of gaining muscle mass for Thor, followed by weight loss for another role, places extraordinary stress on his body. From a psychological perspective, this normalizes extreme behavior, where the body is treated as a machine to be constantly reconfigured, rather than an organism to be nourished. This utilitarian approach to the body can lead to dissociation. The individual begins to see their physique as an external tool, separate from their inner self, that can be pushed to the limit without emotional consequences. However, the body and mind are intrinsically linked. Physical exhaustion, injuries, and chronic pain inevitably affect one's mental state, contributing to the anxiety and fatigue he has already admitted to feeling. The pursuit of physical perfection paradoxically leads to its breakdown, an inconvenient truth hidden behind the magic of Hollywood. The obsessive control over diet and training, while necessary for the final result, is a behavior that in other contexts could be seen as pathological. The actor's life revolves around calories, macronutrients, and workout sets, a rigidly controlled existence that leaves little room for spontaneity and simple pleasure. This iron discipline, celebrated as a virtue, can mask a troubled relationship with food and exercise, where the fear of losing control becomes the primary motivation. It is the dark side of discipline, which can easily turn into a harmful obsession. This all-or-nothing mentality regarding the physique also sets a dangerous standard for the public. By presenting these transformations as achievable and desirable, without fully emphasizing the risks, the industry creates a culture of body dissatisfaction. Many try to emulate these feats without the resources, supervision, and crucially, the genetics of stars like Hemsworth, leading to injuries and body image disorders. Inspiration turns into a recipe for failure and frustration, a cycle fueled by the image of a perfection that omits its true cost. The psychological legacy of this physical genius is, therefore, ambiguous. On one hand, Hemsworth has redefined the standard of the action hero for a generation. On the other, he personifies the dangers of a culture that values aesthetics over sustainable well-being. The dark lesson here is that the body always keeps the score. The relentless pursuit of an external physical ideal can lead to the depletion of our inner self, a reminder that true strength lies not in the ability to shape our muscles, but in the wisdom to respect our limits. What then is the psychological legacy of Chris Hemsworth? He is living proof of the complex and often painful relationship between the public persona and the private self. His journey shows us that the image the world celebrates can be simultaneously an individual's greatest source of power and greatest suffering. He has taught us that identity, especially under the spotlight of global fame, is not a fixed entity, but a constant battlefield between external expectations and internal needs, between the image that is sold and the truth that is felt. Hemsworth's story is a study of identity fragmentation in the modern era. He was fragmented into the body, the hero, the fitness entrepreneur, the movie star. Each of these parts is profitable and admired, but their sum does not necessarily result in a cohesive and fulfilled whole. His struggle to unify these fragments, especially after confronting his own mortality, is the universal human journey on an epic scale. It is this search for authenticity in a world that rewards performance. He also exemplifies the paradox of control. The relentless pursuit of controlling his body, his career, and his image led him to the pinnacle of success, but also to a form of prison. The real turning point in his narrative seems to be happening now. At the moment, he was forced to relinquish control in the face of something as uncontrollable as genetics. This surrender may be the path to a deeper form of power, the power to accept vulnerability and to redefine success on his own terms, far from the applause and the box office numbers, inspirational or manipulative, hero or product. The truth, as always, is complex and uncomfortable. Hemsworth is both. He is a product of a system that demands physical perfection, and at the same time, a man fighting to find his humanity within that system. He inspires us with his discipline and subtly manipulates us by selling an unattainable ideal. His story is not one of condemnation, but of reflection on the psychological forces that shape the idols we create and the price they pay for our entertainment and admiration. In the end, the darkest and simultaneously most hopeful lesson from his trajectory is about the possibility of integration. After years of living as a fragmented icon, Chris Hemsworth's journey now seems to be about finding the man inside the god's armor. It is about understanding that true strength lies not in being invincible, but in being whole. And that is a lesson that resonates far beyond Hollywood, touching all of us who, in some way, also struggle to reconcile the different versions of ourselves. The human mind is the most complex script ever written. If you wish to continue unraveling its darkest pages with us, subscribe now to The Truth, Dark Psychology. Turn on notifications to be the first to know about our new analyses, and leave your final comment. What did Chris Hemsworth's journey reveal to you about the price of perfection? Until next time.